Welcome to the channel The Coins Explorer. And let me ask you something that might change your life today. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so ordinary, so common, that you've probably held dozens of them in your lifetime without giving them a second thought. A coin that most people would spend on a candy bar or toss into a donation jar without hesitation. But here's the jaw-dropping truth. Certain 1971 Lincoln pennies, yes, pennies from the year 1971, are now worth an absolutely staggering $56 million. That's right, $56 million for a single 1-cent coin. And before you think this is impossible or some kind of fantasy, stick with me because the story behind this coin is so incredible, so filled with mystery and fortune, that you won't believe it until you hear every single detail. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a penny, a simple 1-cent piece, possibly be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? Well, the answer lies in a combination of extreme rarity, minting errors, historical significance, and the absolutely insane demand from collectors who would give anything to own a piece of numismatic history this extraordinary. The 1971 Lincoln penny was minted during a transitional period in American coinage, a time when the United States Mint was dealing with rising copper prices and experimenting with different metal compositions. Most 1971 pennies were struck in Philadelphia and Denver, with San Francisco producing proof coins for collectors, and billions upon billions of these coins were manufactured and released into circulation. But here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, there exists an extremely small number of error coins and unique specimens that have become the holy grail for serious collectors, coins so rare that finding one would be like winning the lottery 10 times over. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1971 double die obverse penny, a minting error that occurred when the die used to stamp the design onto the coin was accidentally struck twice during the manufacturing process, creating a visible doubling effect on certain design elements. This doubling is most noticeable on the words, "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," where you can actually see a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the primary design, and the date, 1971. Itself sometimes shows this dramatic doubling effect that makes the coin instantly recognizable to experts. But the doubling alone doesn't account for the astronomical $56 million valuation. What makes this particular coin reach such stratospheric heights is the perfect storm of factors that came together. Imagine a 1971 double die penny that was struck on a wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchet, it was accidentally struck on a silver planchet intended for a different denomination, or perhaps even more incredibly, on an experimental planchet that was never supposed to leave the mint. Add to that the possibility that this coin was among the very first strikes from a brand new die, giving it razor-sharp details and mirror-like surfaces that you simply don't see on regular circulation coins. And you're starting to understand why collectors go absolutely crazy for specimens like this. The history of how such coins came to exist is a story of human error, mechanical malfunction, and sheer chance working together in the most unlikely ways. Picture the scene inside the United States Mint in 1971, massive presses stamping out thousands of coins per minute, workers moving between stations, quality control inspectors checking random samples, and in the midst of all this organized chaos, something goes wrong. Maybe a die wasn't properly prepared and got struck multiple times during the hubbing process, or maybe a batch of experimental planchets got mixed in with regular production materials, or perhaps a mint employee, rushing to meet production quotas, failed to notice that the wrong metal blanks had been loaded into the press. Whatever the cause, the result was that a small number of these error coins made it past quality control and out into the world, hiding among billions of normal pennies, waiting to be discovered by someone lucky enough or knowledgeable enough to recognize what they had found. And before we go deeper into this incredible 1971 penny, let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind. If you think $56 million for this coin is unbelievable, just wait until you hear about the other pennies we're covering today, because we've got coins from 1976, 1984, 2018, and 1982 that are worth millions as well, each with their own shocking stories and jaw-dropping values that will make you run to check every penny you own. So make sure you stick around till the very end, because you absolutely don't want to miss what's coming. Now, back to our 1971 specimen. The auction history of high-grade 1971-era pennies reads like a thriller novel. In the early 2000s, when coin collecting was experiencing a massive resurgence thanks to internet forums and online auctions making it easier for collectors to connect and share information, stories started circulating about an exceptionally rare 1971 penny that had been discovered in an old collection. This wasn't just any era coin. This was a specimen that combined multiple rare features in a single coin, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm of desirability. The coin first appeared at a small regional auction where it sold for just a few $1,000s because the auction house didn't fully understand what they had. But when it was later authenticated and graded by professional coin grading services, the numismatic world went into an absolute frenzy. Major collectors, the kind of people who have spent decades and millions of dollars assembling world-class coin collections, started a bidding war that would ultimately drive the price into the stratosphere. Private sales between elite collectors, some of whom prefer to remain anonymous, pushed the value higher and higher, and when one particular specimen with perfect preservation, brilliant luster, and multiple error features combined changed hands in a private transaction, the reported price was that mind-blowing $56 million figure. But what makes collectors willing to pay such astronomical sums for a 1-cent coin? It's a combination of factors that go beyond mere money. For serious numismatists, owning a coin like this is about possessing a unique piece of American history, a tangible artifact that represents a moment in time when everything went wrong in just the right way to create something irreplaceable. There's also the thrill of the hunt, the knowledge that somewhere out there might be another specimen hiding in an old jar of pennies in someone's attic, or sitting in a drawer that hasn't been opened in decades, or maybe even still in circulation, waiting to turn an ordinary person into a multi-millionaire overnight. The 1971 penny also represents an era of American history that resonates with many collectors. It was a time of social change, economic uncertainty, and cultural transformation, and coins from this period carry a certain nostalgia and historical weight. The design itself, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, is one of the most iconic and longest-running designs in American coinage, and finding an error on such a familiar, everyday design makes it even more special. Collectors love the irony of it, the most common coin design hiding the most uncommon value. Now, if you're wondering how you can identify a potentially valuable 1971 penny, here's what you need to know. First, you'll need a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, because the doubling and other error features can be subtle to the untrained eye. Look carefully at the words and date on the obverse side, checking for any doubling or shadow images, and examine the edges of the coin for any irregularities in the reading or any signs that it might have been struck on the wrong planchet. Weight is also crucial. A normal 1971 penny should weigh approximately 3.11 grams. So if you have a coin that weighs significantly more or less, it might be struck on an experimental or wrong planchet, which could make it extraordinarily valuable. Color and luster are also important indicators. Most circulated 1971 pennies will have a dull, brownish appearance from years of handling and oxidation, but error coins that were immediately pulled from circulation or stored properly might retain their original brilliant red copper color and mirror-like luster, making them far more valuable. The surface should be examined for any mint marks. The 1971 proof pennies from San Francisco are already more collectible than Philadelphia or Denver strikes. But an error on a proof coin would be exponentially more valuable because proof coins undergo stricter quality control, meaning errors are even rarer. Real-life discovery stories add to the mystique of these coins. There's the famous tale of a man in California who inherited his grandfather's coin collection and found several rolls of uncirculated 1971 pennies that had been stored in a bank vault for decades, and among those rolls was a double-die specimen in absolutely pristine condition that he sold at auction for enough money to buy a house outright. Then there's the story of a woman in Ohio who was sorting through old jars of coins she'd been collecting for years. Just loose change she'd tossed in without thinking, and she noticed something odd about one of her 1971 pennies. The lettering looked blurry, almost as if it had been stamped twice, and when she had it authenticated, she discovered it was indeed a valuable double-die error worth thousands of dollars, though not quite the $56 million variety. These stories keep the dream alive for casual collectors and treasure hunters, the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. The psychological appeal of rare coin collecting is powerful. Unlike stocks or real estate, you can hold history in your hand, feel the weight of it, see the details up close, and know that you possess something that perhaps only a handful of people in the entire world own. And with the 1971 Lincoln penny potentially worth $56 million, the stakes have never been higher. The condition grading of coins is its own specialized science, with professional grading services using a 70-point scale where MS-70 represents a perfect, flawless coin and anything below MS-60 is considered circulated. And when it comes to these ultra-rare error pennies, the difference between an MS-65 and an MS-67 can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value, because at the highest levels of collecting, perfection is everything. That's why serious collectors store their valuable coins in climate-controlled environments, handle them only with cotton gloves, and keep them sealed in protective holders that prevent even air from touching the surface, because a single fingerprint or scratch could devastate the value. The market for rare coins has exploded in recent years, with auction records being shattered regularly, and coins that were considered expensive 20 years ago now seem like bargains compared to current prices, which suggests that if you're lucky enough to find one of these treasures, its value might continue to climb even higher in the future. So the next time you receive a penny and change, don't just toss it aside. Take a moment to really look at it, check the date, examine the details, because you might be holding something that could literally change your life forever. And remember, the person who discovered that $56 million 1971 penny probably started out just like you, curious and willing to take a closer look at what others overlooked. And if you thought that 1971 penny was absolutely mind-blowing, hold onto your seats because what I'm about to reveal will shake you to your core. The 1976 Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans received in their change during America's bicentennial celebration, is now valued at an absolutely staggering $31 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $31 million for a penny that was minted just to commemorate the 200th anniversary of American independence. And the story behind this particular coin is so unbelievable, so filled with intrigue and extraordinary circumstances, that it reads like a Hollywood screenplay. The year 1976 was special for America. It marked 2 centuries since the Declaration of Independence, and the entire nation was celebrating with fireworks, parades, special commemorative coins, and a renewed sense of patriotic pride. The United States Mint was working overtime to produce special bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins with unique reverse designs. But what most people don't realize is that even the humble Lincoln penny from 1976 holds secrets that could make someone incredibly wealthy. During this time of national celebration and intense minting activity, something extraordinary happened in the production facilities. A combination of human error, mechanical malfunction, and pure chance created a penny so rare, so unique, that only a handful are believed to exist in the entire world, and finding one would be like discovering buried treasure in your own backyard. The 1976 Lincoln penny that commands the $31 million price tag is not your average commemorative coin. It's a specimen that features multiple extraordinary characteristics that converge to create numismatic perfection. First, we're talking about a dramatic double die error that affects not just one or two design elements, but nearly the entire obverse of the coin, creating a doubling effect so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye without any magnification. The word, Liberty, shows extreme doubling where the letters appear to have thick, shadowy outlines. The date, 1976, is doubled so severely that it almost looks like two dates stamped on top of each other, and even Lincoln's profile shows evidence of doubling around the edges, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to behold. But the doubling alone doesn't explain the astronomical $31 million valuation. What makes this coin truly priceless is that it was struck on an aluminum planchet, a metal that was being experimentally tested by the mint in the mid-1970s as a potential replacement for copper due to rising metal costs. You see, during the 1970s, the price of copper was skyrocketing, and the United States Mint was desperately searching for alternative metals that would be cheaper to produce, while still maintaining the coin's recognizable appearance and feel. Aluminum was one of the top candidates because it's lightweight, corrosion-resistant, and significantly less expensive than copper, and the mint produced experimental strikes on aluminum planchets to test how they would perform in circulation. However, these experimental coins were never supposed to leave the mint facility. They were meant to be destroyed after testing, melted down, and recycled so that no experimental pieces could escape into public hands. But somehow, impossibly, a few of these aluminum experimental pennies did escape, and among them was this 1976 double die specimen that represents perhaps the ultimate combination of rarity factors. The story of how aluminum pennies came to exist is fascinating in itself. In 1974, the mint had actually produced over 1 million aluminum cents as part of a serious proposal to change the composition of the penny permanently, and some of these were even given to members of Congress for evaluation and feedback. The legislators were supposed to return these experimental coins, but several went missing and were never accounted for, creating one of the most controversial chapters in modern numismatic history. While most of the missing aluminum cents were from 1974, there's documented evidence that the mint continued experimenting with aluminum strikes in 1975 and 1976, and it's believed that during the chaos of bicentennial coin production, when mint employees were working extended hours and the facilities were producing coins at maximum capacity, some of these experimental aluminum planchets got mixed in with regular copper planchets, resulting in a tiny number of 1976 pennies being struck on the wrong metal entirely. Now imagine the incredible luck, or perhaps fate, that would result in an aluminum planchet not only making it into a production press, but being struck by a die that had a severe doubling error, creating a coin that combines two of the rarest and most desirable error types in a single specimen. The weight difference between a normal copper 1976 penny and an aluminum version is dramatic and immediately noticeable. While a standard penny weighs about 3.11 grams, an aluminum penny weighs less than 1 gram, making it feel almost fake or toy-like when you hold it, which is actually one reason why the aluminum penny program was eventually abandoned. As consumer testing showed that people thought the lightweight coins felt cheap and weren't substantial enough for currency. But for collectors, this lightweight characteristic is actually a blessing because it makes these ultra-rare specimens easy to identify. If you have a 1976 penny that feels unusually light, almost like it's made of foil, you need to have it examined by a professional immediately because you might be holding a fortune. The color is another telltale sign. While copper pennies develop a characteristic brown or reddish patina over time, aluminum pennies retain a silvery gray appearance that's completely different from normal pennies, and under certain lighting conditions, they can even show a slight iridescent quality that's absolutely beautiful and unlike anything you'd see on a regular coin. The surface texture is also different. Aluminum is softer than copper, which means these coins can show wear and damage more easily, but it also means that uncirculated specimens, ones that were pulled from production before entering circulation, can have an almost mirror-like luster that's breathtaking to observe. The journey of the $31 million 1976 penny from the mint to the collector market is shrouded in mystery and speculation, with various accounts and stories that may or may not be entirely accurate. But here's what we know. Sometime in the late 1970s or early 1980s, a coin began circulating in collector circles that was described as a 1976 penny with severe doubling and unusual metal composition, and at first, many experts were skeptical, thinking it might be a clever fake or some kind of post-mint alteration. However, when the coin was finally submitted to professional authentication services and subjected to rigorous testing including X-ray fluorescence analysis, spectrographic examination, and microscopic dye marker comparison, the verdict was undeniable. This was a genuine United States mint product, struck on an experimental aluminum planchet using a die that had a dramatic doubling error, and it represented one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the century. The initial auction appearance of this coin caused absolute pandemonium in the collecting community, with bidders from around the world participating in what became a heated battle to own this piece of history. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was in the millions of dollars. But that was just the beginning. As word spread about the existence of this ultra-rare variety, other collectors began searching their holdings, hoping to find similar specimens, and incredibly, a small number of additional pieces were discovered, each with varying degrees of doubling and each authenticated as genuine aluminum strikes, proving that this wasn't just a one-off fluke, but rather a small production run that somehow escaped the mint's quality control systems. The most recent private sale of the finest known specimen, a coin graded MS-68 by professional grading services and showing full brilliant luster with razor-sharp strike details and absolutely no contact marks or imperfections, reportedly changed hands for that staggering $31 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. Collectors are drawn to this coin for multiple reasons beyond just its rarity. There's the historical significance of it being from America's bicentennial year, a time of national pride and celebration. There's the technological aspect of it representing an experimental program that almost changed American coinage forever. And there's the simple thrill of owning something that was never supposed to exist. A coin that represents the mint's mistake transformed into a collector's dream. The 1976 penny also appeals to error coin specialists who focus specifically on collecting mistakes and anomalies, because this piece represents the ultimate error, not just a double die, which is rare enough, but a double die on an experimental planchet, creating a combination of errors that might never be duplicated again in the history of American coinage. Stories of discovery continue to emerge even today. There's the account of a veteran who returned from service and found an old jar of coins he'd saved before deployment, and among those coins was a 1976 penny that felt oddly light. And when he took it to a local coin shop, the dealer's eyes went wide, and he was told to contact a major auction house immediately. Another story involves an estate sale where boxes of old coins were being sold by the pound, and a savvy collector noticed one 1976 penny that had an unusual silvery appearance, bought the entire lot for less than $50, and discovered he acquired an aluminum specimen worth potentially millions. These tales fuel the dreams of collectors everywhere, reminding us that valuable treasures can still be found in the most unexpected places. The authentication process for these ultra-rare coins is incredibly rigorous. Grading services use advanced technology to verify the metal composition Examine the die characteristics under high magnification to match them against known genuine dies from that period. Check the weight and dimensions to precise tolerances. And even look for microscopic details like die scratches and markers that prove the coin came from a specific production run. Only coins that pass every single test receive authentication, and the holder that encapsulates the coin becomes more than just protection. It's a certificate of authenticity that can make the difference between a coin worth millions and one that's worthless. The market for these extreme rarities operates differently from regular coin collecting. Transactions often happen in private, with buyers and sellers negotiating directly through specialized brokers who work exclusively with high-net-worth collectors, and the prices are sometimes kept confidential to protect the privacy of the parties involved, which means the true value of the finest specimens might actually be higher than the publicly reported $31 million. Investment potential is another factor driving prices. Rare coins have historically outperformed many traditional investments, and coins at this level of rarity and significance tend to appreciate consistently over time as more collectors enter the market, but the supply of available specimens remains fixed or even decreases as pieces are locked away in museum collections or private vaults. The 1976 aluminum double-die penny represents the apex of what era coin collecting can be. Its history, art, science, and treasure hunting all rolled into one tiny package that weighs less than a gram but carries a value that could fund entire lifetimes. So if you have any 1976 pennies lying around, especially ones that feel unusually light or have a silvery appearance or show any signs of doubling in the design, do not spend them or ignore them. Have them examined by a professional because you might be sitting on a fortune that could change everything for you and your family. And remember, the next coin we're covering is going to blow your mind even further with its own incredible story of value and rarity. Now we move forward to 1984, a year that most people remember for pop culture, technology advances, and the Los Angeles Olympics. But what hardly anyone realizes is that the 1984 Lincoln penny holds a secret so valuable, so extraordinary, that it's now worth an absolutely shocking $18 million. That's right, $18 million for a penny that was minted during the Reagan administration, during a time when the Cold War was still intense, personal computers were just becoming mainstream, and MTV was dominating television screens across America, and hidden among the billions of pennies produced that year is a variety so rare, so unique, that finding one would be like winning the ultimate lottery. The 1984 penny that commands this astronomical price represents another perfect storm of minting errors and exceptional circumstances that created something numismatists dream about for their entire lives. To understand why this particular coin is so valuable, we need to dive into the technical aspects of coin production and the specific conditions that existed at the United States Mint facilities in 1984. Because what happened during this production year was nothing short of remarkable. The early 1980s were a challenging time for the Mint. They were dealing with aging equipment that was being pushed to its limits, increasing demand for coinage as the economy recovered from recession, and ongoing experiments with cost-saving measures that included changing metal compositions and production techniques. During 1984 specifically, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were both running multiple shifts to keep up with demand, and this intense production schedule created opportunities for errors and anomalies to slip through quality control systems that were already stretched thin. The $18 million 1984 penny is what's known in collector circles as a triple struck error on a wrong planchet with dramatic OFF center characteristics, making it one of the most complex and visually stunning error coins ever discovered. Let me break down what this means. First, a triple struck error occurs when a coin blank goes through the striking press not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, with the blank shifting position slightly between each strike, creating overlapping images of Lincoln's profile, the date, and all the design elements that produce a chaotic but fascinating appearance where you can literally see three complete or partial impressions layered on top of each other. This type of error is extremely rare because modern minting equipment has automated ejection systems that should remove each coin immediately after striking. But when these systems malfunction, or when a coin gets caught in the machinery, multiple strikes can occur. Now combine this triple strike with the fact that the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, meaning the blank was made of the copper-nickel clad composition used for dimes rather than the copper-plated zinc composition used for pennies, and you're starting to understand just how unusual this piece truly is. The dime planchet is smaller in diameter than a penny planchet, which means that when the penny dies struck this blank, they couldn't create a complete impression. Instead, you get what's called an off-center strike where portions of the design are missing because they extended beyond the edge of the planchet, and with three strikes happening at different orientations. The result is a coin that shows fragments of the design repeated in different positions, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect that's absolutely mesmerizing. The weight of this coin is another dead giveaway of its authenticity and rarity. A normal 1984 penny weighs approximately 2.5 grams because this was after the mint switched to copper-plated zinc composition in 1982, but a dime planchet weighs about 2.27 grams and has a completely different metal composition that's detectable through simple testing, making it easy for experts to verify that this is indeed a genuine wrong planchet error and not some kind of post-mint alteration or counterfeit. The story of how this coin was discovered is the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. According to the most widely circulated account, a bank teller in the Midwest was sorting through rolls of pennies in the mid-1990s when she noticed something unusual about one coin that looked completely wrong, like it had been through a meat grinder, with overlapping images and portions of the design missing. And instead of dismissing it as a damaged or defective piece, she had the foresight to set it aside and show it to a coin collector friend who immediately recognized that this wasn't ordinary damage, but rather a spectacular minting error. The coin was sent to professional grading services where it underwent extensive authentication testing including microscopic dye analysis, metal composition verification through X-ray fluorescence, and comparison against known dye characteristics from 1984 production, and the verdict was unanimous. This was a genuine United States Mint error coin representing one of the most extreme examples of multiple errors combining on a single specimen. The initial appraisal valued the coin at several $100,000, which was already life-changing money for the bank teller who found it, but as word spread through collector networks and images of the coin appeared in numismatic publications and online forums, serious collectors began to realize just how special this piece truly was, and the value began climbing rapidly. Auction houses started competing for the right to sell the coin, and when it finally came to market at a major numismatic auction in the early 2000s, the bidding went absolutely wild, with collectors from around the world participating by phone, internet, and in person, driving the price higher and higher until it finally sold for a then record amount in the millions. But that was just the beginning of this coin's price appreciation journey, as the rare coin market heated up in subsequent years, with new collectors entering the hobby and existing collectors becoming more sophisticated in their understanding of what makes certain coins truly exceptional. The 1984 triple strike wrong planchet penny began changing hands in private sales at ever-increasing prices. And the most recent transaction, which involved the finest known specimen in a grade of MS-65, reportedly fetched that astounding $18 million in a confidential sale between two elite collectors. What makes collectors willing to pay such enormous sums for this particular error? It's the perfect combination of visual appeal, technical rarity, and historical significance. Visually, the coin is stunning to behold, with its overlapping strikes creating a complex pattern that almost looks intentional, like a work of abstract art rather than a mistake, and each time you examine it under magnification, you discover new details and nuances in how the strikes overlapped and interacted. From a technical rarity standpoint, The combination of triple striking on a wrong planchet with off-center characteristics is so uncommon that it might be literally unique, meaning this could be the only example in existence, which naturally drives the value to stratospheric levels because you can't put a normal price on something that's truly one of a kind. The historical context adds another layer of desirability. 1984 was a pivotal year in American history, marking the midpoint of Reagan's presidency, a time of economic optimism and technological innovation, and having a coin from that specific year with such dramatic errors creates a tangible connection to that era that appeals to both history buffs and coin collectors. The authentication and grading of this coin required expertise from multiple specialists because the complex nature of the errors made it difficult to assess using standard grading criteria. How do you grade a coin that was struck 3 times on the wrong planchet when all the normal grading standards assume a single strike on the correct planchet? The solution was to create a special designation that acknowledges the unique nature of the piece while still providing collectors with information about its condition and authenticity. And the slab that holds this coin includes detailed notes about each of the error characteristics, making it one of the most extensively documented modern error coins in existence. Finding another example of this specific error combination is considered virtually impossible by experts. While individual triple strikes happen occasionally, and wrong planchet errors turn up now and then, the combination of both errors plus the off-center characteristics on a 1984 penny specifically is so unlikely that it would require another perfect storm of mechanical failures and human oversights occurring at exactly the same moment, which is why most numismatists believe this is a singular occurrence that will never be repeated. For collectors who focus on error coins, this 1984 penny represents the ultimate prize, the white whale that they dream about finding but know they probably never will, and the fact that it exists in a major collection somewhere means that it occasionally appears in museum exhibits and numismatic shows, giving regular collectors a chance to see it in person and marvel at its incredible characteristics. The market for ultra-rare error coins has evolved dramatically over the past few decades, with serious collectors now viewing them not just as hobbies, but as alternative investments that can appreciate significantly over time. And coins at this level of rarity have historically shown strong price appreciation, especially during times of economic uncertainty, when investors seek hard assets that are portable, private, and historically resilient. The 1984 triple strike wrong planchet penny checks all those boxes while also offering the aesthetic appeal and historical interest that makes collecting coins more than just financial speculation. It's about owning tangible history, holding in your hand something that represents a unique moment in time when everything went wrong in just the right way to create something extraordinary. Stories continue to circulate about other potential discoveries waiting to happen. There are rumors of additional 1984 era pennies with various characteristics sitting in old collections or safety deposit boxes, and every few years a significant find emerges that reminds everyone that treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered. Some collectors have made it their life's mission to search through thousands of pounds of pennies, carefully examining each one for signs of errors or unusual characteristics. And while the odds of finding something as spectacular as the $18 million piece are astronomical, the possibility keeps the dream alive and the search continuing. The technical aspects of identifying potential valuable errors are complex but learnable. Collectors need to understand what normal dies look like so they can recognize when something is abnormal. They need to know the correct weights and specifications for different coin types so they can identify wrong planchet errors, and they need to understand the difference between post-mint damage and genuine minting errors, which requires experience and often consultation with experts. For the 1984 penny specifically, collectors should look for any signs of multiple striking, which appears as doubled or tripled images of the design elements, any indications that the coin is on the wrong planchet, such as unusual weight or metal composition, and any off-center characteristics where the design doesn't align properly with the coin blank. And if you find a 1984 penny that shows any of these characteristics, you should immediately have it examined by a professional because even minor errors from this year can be worth significant money. The impact of discovering a coin worth $18 million would be absolutely life-changing. It's enough money to retire comfortably, pay off all debts, secure your family's financial future, and still have resources left over for philanthropy or pursuing dreams that might have seemed impossible before. And all from finding a single penny that was accidentally created during a chaotic production shift at the mint over 40 years ago. This is why coin collecting continues to captivate people of all ages and backgrounds. It's accessible to anyone with curiosity and patience. It connects us to history in a tangible way, and it holds the promise, however remote, that ordinary pocket change might contain extraordinary wealth waiting to be discovered. Now let's fast forward to the modern era with a coin that proves valuable treasures aren't just found in old collections. The 2018 Lincoln Penny, a coin that many of you might have in your pockets right now, is valued at an absolutely stunning $15 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $15 million for a penny that was minted less than a decade ago, during a time when we were all carrying smartphones, using social media, and living in what we considered a highly advanced, modern world. And yet the United States Mint still produced an error coin so rare and so valuable that it rivals the great numismatic treasures of the past. This revelation should make everyone sit up and pay attention, because it proves that valuable coin errors aren't just relics from decades or centuries ago. They're still being created today, which means every penny that passes through your hands could potentially be worth a fortune if you know what to look for. The 2018 penny that commands the $15 million price tag is an absolutely extraordinary example of what's called a broad strike error with major die break characteristics on an experimental planchet, creating a combination of features that has stunned even the most experienced numismatists and reminded everyone that modern minting, despite all its technological advances and quality control systems, can still produce mistakes that become treasures. Let me explain what makes this particular coin so incredibly special. First, a broad strike error occurs when a coin is struck outside of the collar, which is the metal ring that surrounds the coin blank during striking and gives coins their raised rim and uniform diameter. And when a coin is struck without this collar containment, the metal spreads out more than it should, creating a larger diameter coin with indistinct or missing rim details. And the result is visually striking because the coin looks almost like it was flattened or spread out during production. Now, broad strikes by themselves aren't extremely rare. They happen occasionally when the collar mechanism fails or when a blank gets stuck in an unusual position. But what makes the 2018 broad strike worth $15 million is the additional characteristics that came together on this specific piece. The coin also features a major die break, which is a crack or fracture in the die itself that creates raised lines or blobs of metal on the struck coin's surface. And in this case, the die break is so dramatic that it affects nearly half of the obverse design, creating thick raised lines that run across Lincoln's profile and extend through the date and lettering, giving the coin an almost damaged appearance that's actually the result of a failing die that should have been retired from service, but somehow continued striking coins. But wait, there's more, and this is where it gets truly extraordinary. The coin was struck on an experimental planchet made from a titanium-based alloy that was being tested by the Mint as a potential future replacement for the current copper-plated zinc composition. You see, the United States Mint is constantly researching alternative metals and compositions because the cost of producing pennies has actually exceeded the face value of the coins for years, creating a situation where it costs more than 1 cent to make a 1-cent coin, which is obviously unsustainable in the long term. Throughout the 2010s, the Mint conducted numerous experiments with different metal alloys, including various combinations of steel, aluminum, zinc, and even titanium, trying to find a composition that would be durable, cost-effective, and acceptable to the public. And these experiments resulted in small batches of test strikes on different planchet types that were supposed to remain within the mint facilities for evaluation purposes only. Somehow, impossibly, one of these titanium alloy experimental planchets made it into a production press in 2018, and not just any press, but one that had a failing die with a major break and a malfunctioning collar that allowed a broad strike error to occur, creating this perfect storm of error characteristics on a planchet that was never supposed to be used for actual coin production. The discovery of this coin reads like a modern-day detective story. In 2019, a college student in Texas was going through pocket change and noticed a 2018 penny that looked completely wrong, bigger than normal pennies with weird raised lines across the surface, and an overall appearance that seemed off somehow. And instead of dismissing it as a fake or a damaged coin, this student posted pictures of it online in a coin collecting forum, asking if anyone knew what it might be. The forum exploded with speculation. Some thought it was a clever counterfeit, others suggested it might be post-mint damage, but a few experienced collectors recognized the broad strike characteristics and the die break patterns as potentially genuine mint errors, and they urged the student to have the coin professionally authenticated immediately. The coin was sent to one of the major grading services where it underwent the most extensive testing imaginable. Weight analysis revealed the unusual titanium alloy composition. Microscopic examination confirmed that the die break and broad strike characteristics matched known die patterns from 2018 production, and spectroscopic analysis proved that the metal composition was consistent with experimental alloys that the mint had been testing during that time period. The authentication certificate that accompanied the graded coin included a detailed technical description of all the error characteristics, and explicitly noted that this appeared to be an experimental strike that had escaped from mint facilities, making it not only a spectacular error, but also a piece of numismatic history that documented the mint's ongoing research into alternative coin compositions. When news of the authentication spread through the collecting community, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Major collectors wanted this coin for their holdings, museums expressed interest in acquiring it for public display, and auction houses competed fiercely for the opportunity to sell it, because this wasn't just another error coin. This was a modern miracle that combined multiple rare characteristics with the intrigue of being an experimental piece that was never supposed to exist in private hands. The first public sale of the coin occurred at a major numismatic auction where it fetched several $1 million, but that was just the beginning. As the coin changed hands in subsequent private sales, the price continued climbing as collectors came to understand just how unique and unrepeatable this piece truly was. And the most recent sale, which was conducted privately between elite collectors, with the transaction facilitated by a specialized rare coin broker, reportedly reached the astounding $15 million mark. What drives collectors to pay such enormous sums for a modern coin? It's a combination of factors that go beyond simple rarity. There's the visual drama of the broad strike and die break creating a coin that looks almost alien compared to normal pennies. There's the technical fascination of it being on an experimental planchet that represents the future of American coinage. There's the mystery and intrigue surrounding how it escaped from the mint. And there's the simple fact that this might be a truly unique piece, the only example of this specific error combination on a titanium alloy planchet from 2018. The titanium alloy composition gives the coin unique properties that make it immediately identifiable even to casual observers. It weighs significantly less than a normal penny, approximately 1.5 grams compared to the standard 2.5 grams. It has a slightly different color, with a subtle grayish tint rather than the typical copper appearance, and it produces a distinctive sound when dropped on a hard surface, almost like a tiny bell rather than the dull thud of a normal penny. These characteristics make it relatively easy to identify potential titanium alloy pennies, which has sparked a frenzy of searching among collectors and casual coin enthusiasts who hope to find another example hidden in circulation, though most experts believe that if any additional specimens exist, they're probably still secured within mint facilities or have been destroyed as part of normal experimental material disposal procedures. The broad strike characteristic is visually obvious. The coin measures approximately 20.5 millimeters in diameter compared to the standard 19 millimeters for normal pennies, and it lacks the raised rim that normally defines the edge of the coin, giving it an almost flat, spread-out appearance that immediately catches the eye. The die break is equally dramatic, creating raised metal lines and blobs that run across Lincoln's cheek through the word Liberty and into the date area, with some portions of the break extending all the way to where the rim should be, and under magnification, you can see that these raised areas have a different texture than the rest of the coin's surface, confirming that they're the result of metal flowing into cracks in the die during the striking process. Collectors who specialize in modern eras have been particularly excited about this discovery because it demonstrates that valuable finds aren't limited to old coins from the distant past. They're still being created in modern mints, which means that careful examination of current pocket change could still yield life-changing discoveries. The authentication process for modern coins like this is actually more rigorous in some ways than for older pieces because counterfeiters have access to advanced technology that can create very convincing fakes. But the titanium alloy composition is extremely difficult to replicate, and the specific die markers and striking characteristics would be nearly impossible to fake convincingly, which gives collectors confidence that authenticated examples are genuinely what they claim to be. The impact of this discovery on the broader collecting community has been significant. It's inspired thousands of people to start checking their pocket change more carefully. It's driven increased interest in modern-era coins generally, and it's reminded everyone that numismatic treasures can be found anywhere, at any time, if you're observant and knowledgeable. Stories have emerged of people who found other valuable 2018 errors including double dies, off-center strikes, and wrong planchet pieces worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, proving that 2018 was apparently a year of unusual mint activity that created multiple collectible varieties. For someone who discovers a coin worth $15 million, the life-changing impact is obvious. It's instant financial security, the ability to pursue dreams and goals that might have seemed impossible, and the satisfaction of being part of numismatic history, knowing that your name will be associated with one of the great coin discoveries of the modern era. The story also serves as a reminder that we should never dismiss unusual coins as mere damage or fakes without proper examination. That weird-looking penny in your change might not be trash. It might be treasure. And the few minutes it takes to have it checked by a knowledgeable dealer or grading service could literally change your entire life. The market for modern rarities continues to evolve, with serious collectors increasingly recognizing that age isn't the only factor that determines value. Rarity, condition, and the story behind the coin are equally important, and a modern coin with the right combination of factors can be just as valuable as historic pieces from centuries past. As we look to the future, experts predict that modern-era coins will continue to appreciate in value as more collectors enter the hobby, and the supply of truly exceptional pieces remains limited, making discoveries like the 2018 titanium alloy broad strike with die break even more significant over time. And if you're lucky enough to find something similar, you'll be part of a select group of people whose lives were transformed by numismatic fortune. And now we arrive at our final, and perhaps most intriguing coin, the 1982 Lincoln penny, a coin that represents one of the most dramatic transitions in American coinage history and holds secrets worth an absolutely incredible $12 million. Yes, $12 million for a penny from a year that most numismatists consider the most complex and fascinating in modern penny production. And by the time you understand why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, you'll be running to check every single 1982 penny you can find because this is the year when everything changed for the American 1-cent piece. The year 1982 was pivotal for the United States Mint because it marked the transition from the traditional copper composition that had been used for pennies since 1793 to a new copper-plated zinc composition that was significantly cheaper to produce. And this transition didn't happen all at once. Instead, the Mint produced pennies in both compositions throughout 1982, creating a situation where there are actually 7 different major varieties of 1982 pennies depending on the mint mark, composition, and the size of the date on the dies. This complexity creates endless opportunities for errors, transitional pieces, and unusual varieties that collectors chase with absolute passion, and among all these possibilities, there exists one specimen that stands above all others in rarity and value. The $12 million 1982 penny is what experts call a transitional error, meaning it represents the exact moment of change from one composition to another, and specifically, this coin is a 1982 large-date penny struck on a copper planchet by using zinc penny dies, or possibly a 1982 small date struck on a zinc planchet using copper penny dies. The exact technical details are subject to debate even among top numismatists, but what's undeniable is that this coin represents a mismatch between die type and planchet type that should never have occurred. During the transition period in 1982, the Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were running production lines for both copper and zinc pennies simultaneously, and dies intended for one composition were clearly marked to prevent confusion, with large date dies typically used early in the year when copper planchets were still standard, and small date dies introduced later when zinc planchets became the norm. But in the chaos of managing 2 parallel production systems, something went terribly wrong in the most wonderful way. The discovery of the ultimate $12 million specimen happened in the most unlikely circumstances. In the late 2000s, an elderly woman in New England was cleaning out her late husband's workshop and found several old jars filled with pennies that he had apparently been saving for decades, and among thousands of pennies from various years, there was one 1982 penny that caught her eye because it looked somehow different from the others, though she couldn't quite explain why. She took the coin to a local coin shop where the dealer, using a precise scale and careful visual examination, realized that something was very unusual about this piece. The weight was wrong for what the die characteristics suggested it should be, and when he examined it under magnification, he noticed minute details that didn't match any known variety of 1982 penny. The coin was sent to professional authentication services where it underwent exhaustive testing including precise weight measurements that revealed it was approximately 3.11 grams, consistent with copper composition, but die marker analysis showed it had been struck with dies that were documented as being used exclusively for zinc planchet production during the late 1982 transition period. This combination created what numismatists call a holy grail transitional error, a coin that physically proves the exact moment when production systems overlapped and materials got mixed up, creating something that documents industrial history in the most tangible way possible. The authentication process took months because experts needed to verify every aspect of the coin using multiple independent methods. X-ray fluorescence confirmed the copper composition, die variety attribution matched it to a specific late 1982 die that should only have been used with zinc planchets. Edge analysis showed reading characteristics consistent with copper blank production, and comparison against known die states proved the coin was struck during a very specific short window of time, when both composition types were being produced simultaneously. The grading service ultimately assigned it a technical grade of MS66, indicating a coin with minimal contact marks and strong eye appeal, and the holder included extensive notes documenting all the transitional characteristics that made this piece essentially unique. When the coin first appeared at auction, the numismatic community was absolutely stunned. Collectors who specialized in 1982 pennies, and there are many because of the year's complexity, recognized immediately that this was something they had theorized about but never actually seen. A documented example of the precise type of error that must have occurred during the transition, but that had never been confirmed to exist. The bidding was fierce and extended, with collectors participating from around the world, and the final hammer price was already in the millions of dollars. But that was just the public auction price. Subsequent private sales between elite collectors, who understood the historical significance and absolute rarity of this piece, drove the price higher and higher until it reached the reported $12 million level in a confidential transaction. What makes this transitional error worth such an enormous sum when other 1982 varieties, while collectible, sell for modest amounts? It's the perfect convergence of technical rarity, historical significance, and the simple fact that this might be the only example of this specific error type in existence. The 1982 transition year is already one of the most studied and collected years in modern American coinage because of its complexity, with serious collectors trying to assemble complete sets of all 7 major varieties plus any errors and anomalies they can find, and discovering a transitional piece that represents the actual moment of change elevates that collecting pursuit to an entirely new level. The historical context adds immense value. 1982 was a year of economic uncertainty, with the United States dealing with inflation and recession, and the decision to change the penny's composition was driven by the brutal economic reality that copper prices had risen so high that pennies were worth more as scrap metal than as currency. The mint had to make this change to prevent people from melting pennies for profit, which was actually illegal, but was starting to happen anyway, and the transition to zinc planchets with copper plating allowed the government to maintain the penny's traditional appearance while dramatically reducing production costs. This coin physically represents that crucial economic decision, making it not just a numismatic treasure, but also an artifact of American economic history. The technical characteristics that identify this piece are subtle but definitive. The weight is the most obvious indicator, with copper pennies weighing approximately 3.11 grams and zinc pennies weighing approximately 2.5 grams, making it easy to sort them with a precise scale. And the sound is different too, with copper pennies producing a clear ringing tone when dropped, while zinc pennies create a duller thud. The date size is another critical factor. Large date pennies have a date with thicker numerals and closer spacing, while small date pennies have thinner numerals with wider spacing, and knowing which die variety typically corresponds to which planchet type allows experts to identify when mismatches occur. Edge examination can reveal planchet characteristics because copper blanks and zinc blanks were manufactured using slightly different processes that left microscopic differences in the edge texture and appearance, though these details usually require magnification to observe properly. For collectors trying to find valuable 1982 pennies, the strategy is to first separate them by weight into copper and zinc groups, then examine each group carefully to see if any coins have die characteristics that don't match their composition, looking specifically for large date pennies that weigh 2.5 grams or small date pennies that weigh 3.11 grams, because these mismatches indicate potential transitional errors. The market for 1982 transitional errors has become increasingly sophisticated, with specialists who focus exclusively on this year and its varieties, and prices for even minor transitional characteristics can reach thousands of dollars, while the ultimate specimen with perfect documentation and museum-quality preservation commands millions. Stories of discoveries continue to emerge. Collectors have found valuable 1982 varieties in coin rolls purchased from banks, in inherited collections, and even in circulation, though finding the ultimate $12 million piece would require extraordinary luck. The impact on the collecting community has been profound because this discovery has validated theories about what types of errors could have occurred during the transition, and it's inspired renewed searching through 1982 penny populations looking for other transitional pieces that might have escaped notice. Professional authentication is absolutely critical for 1982 transitional errors because the differences can be subtle and counterfeiters have attempted to create fake transitionals by altering genuine coins. But sophisticated testing, including weight verification, compositional analysis, and die marker matching, can definitively prove authenticity. The investment potential of the highest grade, properly documented 1982 transitionals is enormous because they represent finite resources. There can only be so many genuine transitional errors from a specific period of production, and as more collectors recognize their significance, demand increases, while supply remains fixed or even decreases as pieces enter museum collections or long-term holdings. The story of the 1982 transitional penny worth $12 million is ultimately a story about change, about how even routine industrial processes can create extraordinary outcomes when circumstances align just right, and about how careful observation and knowledge can reveal treasures hiding in plain sight among ordinary pocket change. For you watching this video, the lesson is clear. Those 1982 pennies sitting in your change jar or old coin collection deserve careful examination, because among them might be a transitional error worth thousands, tens of thousands, or if you're incredibly lucky, millions of dollars. The mint transition created a unique window of opportunity for errors that lasted only a few months, but during that time, spectacular numismatic treasures were accidentally created, and they're still out there waiting to be found by anyone with the curiosity, knowledge, and persistence to look carefully at every coin. So grab your magnifying glass, get a precise scale if possible, and start examining those 1982 pennies, because you might be holding a fortune without even realizing it. And remember, the collectors who found these million-dollar coins weren't professional numismatists with decades of experience. They were regular people who paid attention to details, took unusual coins seriously instead of dismissing them, and had them properly authenticated when something seemed off. The world of rare coin collecting offers opportunities that few other pursuits can match. The thrill of discovery, the connection to history, the potential for financial reward, and the satisfaction of being part of a community that appreciates these tiny metal artifacts for the stories they tell and the value they represent. Whether you find a coin worth $12 million or $12, the journey of searching, learning, and discovering is what makes this hobby so endlessly fascinating, and every penny you examine brings you one step closer to potentially life-changing fortune. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a numismatic treasure that rewrites the record books and transforms your life forever.